Welcome to the Ralph Bivens Project. I'm Ralph Bivens, and we're here today. And everybody knows that Earth Day is coming up soon, April 22nd. So mark that on your calendar and celebrate big, okay? Um, but it's important that we remember sustainability and what's going on with our environment and what could happen and what could go wrong and what's the way to make it better. So we're here today with architect Maria Perez. She is Sustainability Design Director at Ginsler, one of the largest architecture firms in the world, and she's based in Houston. She studied this sustainability a great deal, and she knows a lot about it and how to make buildings green, how to make your environment better, and how to live better, how to make better places for people to live that are sustainable. So, welcome, Maria. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.
We know that recently, not too long ago, Gensler's a big architecture firm globally, of course, and they have a major presence in the Houston market for the 50 years. They're now celebrating their 50th year, and also they've 50th year in Houston, but they've also did move their offices. They were in Pennzoil Place, which of course is um, Mr. Hines, Mr. Gerald Hines' transformative work there in downtown Houston, and they moved their office from there to 2 Houston Center, which is a Brookfield property, which also happens to be, undergoing. It just completed a major redevelopment of that skyscraper, the 2 Houston Center building, and so I just wanted to ask for your thoughts about that, Maria.
Yeah, I think what we did in our office is a good example of what's happening around the different cities. Is that repositioning older buildings is the future. So what we're seeing with our project, we want to use our project as an example of how can we take older buildings, retrofitting them, and bring them alive. So I think what we wanted to do, we didn't want to start from scratch in a new building, and we wanted to make an statement. So when we selected the new site, the statement is, okay, let's try to find out ways to revitalize the downtown area. So I think one of the biggest components for our end was to find places that people don't have to, they can use public transit. We want to stay in downtown. We wanted to make sure that the employees, when they come to work, they don't have to drive. So, for example, I live in the Woodlands and they do have the parking right. So I do travel using the bus, the Woodlands Express. Is far away. I know my carbon footprint might not be good, but at least I'm using public transit. Well, it's not public, it's private, but you still have some options. The other opportunity for us is that we wanted to be close to where everything else. We wanted to have access to amenities, services, restaurants. So when you're in downtown, you don't have to drive anywhere. The other thing we really like is to have the tunnel connection. In the tunnel connection, we want it to be close to everything. So if you have a meeting in one building, you can go to the next building. And if it's too hard, you don't have excuse, you can use the tunnel and still connecting. So I think one of the biggest statements, we knew downtown was the way to go, and we selected that site specifically for that. So when we got that opportunity, we're not only moving our office there, we were also were able to reposition the entire building. So one of the main goals for us when we started was to create a space that allows the employees to do more workouts, to have a fitness center. In the previous office, we did not have a gym. We did not have access to facilities to allow us to do more workouts throughout the workday. So one of the big items for us was to move into a place that we will offer the employees the opportunity to have a fitness center and to being able to bike to work. We do have opportunities for that. So I think what the big issue for us was we wanted to show that we're committed to this. So we had basically two certifications. The new office has a lead goal certification, And we also went for Fitwel certification. Fitwel is focusing on the health and well-being of the employees. And we wanted to show a commitment, not only doing the right thing during the design, but we wanted to have a third-party certification to show that we actually doing the right thing. So in summary, I think that the change is fantastic. People are very happy. We have a lot of more access to other amenities that we didn't have in the previous office. So I think that's the biggest statement, and the fact that we were able to save the building and being able to bring more life to it. That's the biggest component. And I don't know if you've been in our office, but we do have an exterior stair that's connecting all the way up, and that exterior stair is really making an statement for wellness and make sure that we're activating all the spaces.
Yeah, well, uh, Fitwel, is a certification kind of like LEED, but it's more health oriented. LEED, of course, is sustainability and green oriented, but Fitwel, is about healthy employees and healthy workplaces and things, and the stairs. I mean, real tangible, practical thing. Having stairs in there is a big deal. I know that your firm was involved in one of the newest buildings in downtown Houston, the Skanska building, which is now Bank of America Center, I think. Yeah, Bank of America Center, and but it has those huge stairwells laying going down to the basement level, actually, but it's so open. And this is not we're not talking about 6 foot wide stairs. This is 20 feet wide or more. I don't know, but big. And it also has these beautiful wooden planks that you can sit on, and it's kind of like seating, a staircase seating above a food hall. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts about putting in the stairwells and these in that building and in others.
Yeah, I think the intent on the building was to, you know how we have the tunnel, and the tunnel is dark, and it's not a whole lot of light coming through that. So the experience when you get into the tunnels was not very good. What we wanted to do with that building, the Bank of America Tower, we wanted to open it up to bring the light in the tunnel. So as you go down, you can see a lot of daylight coming through the space. So one of the biggest components on the design was, okay, if we're gonna have that tunnel connection, at least the experience, we wanted to make it very prominent, and that's one of the main components on that design. The other thing we did, in that building is also Fitwel certified. I don't know if you know that, but they have LEED Platinum certification on the core and shell, and they also pursue Fitwel. And it's because of the same reasons. They wanted to activate the stairs, they want to activate the space. And when they're doing that, they following that protocol and the policies that also are part of the Fitwel program. So the intent also was to, after hours, after you finish work, you want to go in and have a drink with a friend. You want to stay in downtown. They wanted to keep people in downtown after hours. So that's why the first level, when they have all the stores, you will have a lot of going on after work. So the idea is workers don't go home. They will like to stay down and relax and a happy hour and be there for a few hours. So I think the idea was to create that space. The people wanted to stay longer in downtown instead of leaving at 5 o'clock. And that was part of that scope, that design, creating that environment in level one all the way down to the tunnel system.
It is the way that the building, which of course is new construction, the way that building opens up to the tunnel level. You're right. There's so much openness above it, so much sunlight coming in. It does not feel like the tunnel. That's probably, it may be the best. It's at least one of the best. It's probably the best way to open up a building. That's example of opening up a tunnel level to the outside, to the upper, to the sun and to the light that we have. That's probably our greatest example in Houston of opening up a tunnel, and it's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah,
The,
because if you walk in the tunnel, it's really very dark and it's not a whole lot of going on. It's just a circulation path, but we wanted to create a different experience there. So the intent is you want to stay, you want to be there for more hours than just the 5 o'clock and you want to leave. Now, post pandemic, we have to create new spaces. We have to see, okay, if we want the employees to stay longer, it might be a concert, it might be a band playing in there, it might be something else. But I think the idea is to somehow keeping people in downtown longer to
Yeah, I
create
mean,
more business, right?
we've wanted that for a long time, but so long that it's been it's 5 o'clock. Let's roll up the sidewalks and it's empty. That's probably the way it was back when you know Pennzoil Place was new in 1975, and even there after that for years. Downtowns, at least our downtown, we didn't have that much resident. We had tiny, maybe a couple of hundred living units, but otherwise, it's 5 o'clock. People leave the office, and there's only a few really hard workers working late, stay, and otherwise, downtown wasn't had much happening. We got the baseball stadium in, the basketball arena, and new things happened, and so it has improved over all these years, so which is a good thing. I'm glad it has. the Now we've talked about. Oh, I wanted before we move on. I wanted to forget. Here it is. I've been reading the Ginsler Design Forecast
Okay.
2022, and so one of the things there, uh, the talking points in there. It's a summary, but really a good thing. Gensler Design Forecast. I recommend it. You can find it online, and it's great stuff. Uh, and the headline is Communities increasingly want 20-minute neighborhoods. Mixed use spaces are crucial for achieving 20-minute neighborhoods, a concept in which every commercial, residential, and institutional need is within a 20-minute walk or bike ride of each other. Mixed use developments help facilitate walkability by reimagining the single use residential and commercial blocks as multi use spaces that cater to a variety of needs and experiences. Uh, what, could you comment on that? The 20-minute concept, I'm sure you're pretty familiar with that.
Yes, I think the 20-minute concept has to do with the driving. We want to make people more aware about where they live and being able to have everything they need without having to get into the car. So the 20-minute is something that was the for lead and the lead rating system. They're asking for a half a mile or a quarter of a mile when you're looking for services. And it takes you about 20, 15 to 20 minutes to walk a quarter of a mile or a mile. After that, it's too much. You will have to take the car. So I think the 20-minute started from the rating system when they were saying, okay, if you walk a half a mile, if you have to go somewhere, half a mile is reasonable. Even a mile is reasonable. More than a mile, is say no. I have to drive. So I think the whole idea about creating these neighborhoods, it was that you can bike, you can walk, you can have everything you need without having to get into your car. And it's considered to be the most sustainable way because you're reducing the amount of miles that you're driving, and you're reducing carbon emissions in the same way. So that's why being in downtown makes sense, and that's why Gensler continue having that office in downtown, because when people come in the morning, they have everything they need. They don't have to go anyplace else. So in the connection, we have the light rail. We can connect to the medical center if we have an option for that. So I think the same happened with, for example, I live in the Woodlands. In the Woodlands, they're trying to contain everything within that. And
Mhm.
even though there are places that are very far, we still have the bike routes, so you can ride your bike.
Mhm.
So that's the future, basically, to reduce the amount of miles, to get away from freeways, and to be able to have everything you need within that half a mile or that quarter of a mile. That makes sense. So
Yes,
it is.
reduce the
Uh,
amount of driving you have to do, and reduce the amount of carbon footprint that you have.
So, and it's part of the Fitwel program as well. So now with all these health and wellness programs that are coming up, they're all looking for places to be in which you have that option. And in Houston, they say, well, people don't walk in Houston, but we are having right now more places that have shading, that we have trees. That is nice to be outdoors. I know, for example, I arrived in Houston in 1996, and Discovery Green did not exist by then. I remember I came to downtown and it was all parking lots everywhere. Uh, it was parking lots, no shading, no trees, no landscape. So you don't want to be there.
Mhm.
Now, later on, when they start creating these new spaces like Discovery Green, I remember, wow, this is fantastic. And everybody wanted to participate in whatever is was going on in Discovery Green. And then development start happening, and then the parking lots were in away and you start putting buildings there. So the transformation happened when that we had that park, because finally we have a place to be. It's a green space and it's fantastic. So I think that for downtown Houston, at least, Discovery Green was the biggest I think design idea they come up
Mhm.
with, the making people wanted to walk more and being able to be outdoors more, right?
It's really important. Stuff's been built, and then I think Marvy Finger followed it up and built a 30-story residential building right across the street from Discovery Green. I think this has been
Exactly.
15 years or something, 12 years. It's been a while. He built that tower and 350 units. Boom. It stays leased all the time. People love it.
And
And
it's because of the green space. It's the green space. And we remember when after they opened Discovery Green, we noticed a lot of development happened because people start purchasing those parking lots. And we were lucky at Gensler. We were working in a project called the Hess Tower by then. And the Hess Tower was the first project that achieved LEED Platinum certification. And I remember that one of the main components was to have views and access to that park, and that was the sell point. I mean, that park really brought that life to downtown. So I thank the designers and the city of Houston, because it was a partnership between the public and the private, for bringing that park into life, because that really make a huge difference in Houston. And then since then, it's been all of the lots start basically being sold out, and now we're seeing more housing, apartments, things going on, and it just become what it is right now.
it's exceeded Discovery Green, which of course across the street from the George R. Brown Convention Center, on the kind of the eastern part of downtown. It's still downtown, but it's on the east side of Main Street, which was kind of for a long time was Houston Center was out there, and maybe some, but it just when Discovery Green happened, when the George R. Brown happened, we got a pretty good shift away from. Hey, not everything has to be on Louisiana Street. Louisiana Street is a good street. It's a great street, but the good stuff that was happening there, it's kind of spread throughout downtown. And Discovery Green was, exceeded everybody's expectation. And I guess Skanska now is expanding that with a
Another
project, a
project.
mixed use project of some sort, with an office building, which I believe they have broken ground on the office building there, occupied by a law firm. But
And you see, when people come to Houston, they don't expect to have a Discovery Green. They expect a place they don't have any life, no, there is no walkability, nothing. So when they come and they visit and they see it, they cannot believe it. They say, wow, I cannot believe I'm in Houston. And they see the light rail come through. So it really is being transformative. And I'm excited for the change because I have seen the change. And I think it's more to come. What we're doing in downtown is great, and now with the connected communities that started that program that started a few years ago with the mayor, is making a huge difference, because that's what we need: more sidewalks, connect all the communities, and being able to use biking and walking and being able to feel safe in those streets. So more to come, but I'm excited for the change. I'm excited for the transformation. And I think when we're talking about the 20-minute neighborhood, We also have to think about that we have a lot of pockets in the city for growth. We have the Galleria, which could be self-contained. We do have where the Herman Park is located, which is another nice area that has a lot of green area. We have downtown, and all of those can be considered the 20-minute neighborhood that we've been talking about. So we do have those packets. Now, I think the biggest challenge for us is to connect those packets without having to drive, right? Because if you want to go to Galleria, you still have to drive unless you can take the train, and but then you don't have the option. So somehow those satellites or those neighborhoods, the next challenge for us is to make those connections better, so that you don't have to take your car and you be able to travel from one neighborhood to the next.
Yeah, so have a collection of 20-minute neighborhoods, and we're talking about the future of Houston and what's important. I think you nailed it there. Have the 20-minute neighborhoods that can be walkable and self-contained for a lot of people's lives, that they don't have to hop in the car for everything. Uh, but connect those 20-minute neighborhoods with some kind of transit.
Some
It's been incredibly hard. It seems it just takes time, and I don't know. Maybe we don't have everybody on the same page. I don't know what the issue is, but when you're talking about the future of Houston, and having the sustainability as a key prop for our future growth, why can't we get some more rail? I mean, you're right. It's crazy to have the Galleria kind of stuck out there by itself without a connection to the rest of the city by some type of a rail line or other appropriate mass transit. Just won't happen. I don't. But
exactly.
what else about the future? What are you thinking about the future?
Well,
Um,
yeah, and when we're thinking about the future, I think one thing that I would love to see in Houston, since we have a lot of flooding and we have issues with the storms, is to have more green roofs, and reduce the amount of paving and amount of hard surfaces that we have, more green spaces and more green roofs. Somehow create spaces in which we can retain more rainwater instead of runoff, because every time we have a rain event, the streets are all flooded and we have a big issue. So if we were to keep what we currently have existing and we could do something that is not major investment, I think one great strategy is what Chicago is doing. They create that green roof incentive, in which they say every project that goes for green roof, they're going to have this incentive. So having incentives for creating more vegetation, more biodiversity, and bringing more into the city. So that way, when I have a big event, we still have some runoff, but the fact that we have a lot of green roofs and vegetation, that will make it less impactful, right?
Green roofs. Can you describe
Mhm.
to us what does a green roof look like?
Uh, a good example, we were talking about Bank of America, right? The
Yeah.
Bank of America that we were talking, they created a terrace on the top of the garage. They create a green roof. A green roof, it means that you're going to have trees and landscape. So instead of just having a plain roof, you're going to add landscape to the other level. So if all of the structures that we have in downtown were to add that portion and create trees and landscape in that level, that's what I'm talking about. And Discovery Green is a good example of what a green roof is, because it's in a different level, right? So they have that different level and you can park underneath. So I think the idea about green roof is, if we have any surface currently that is just a roof, being able to cover that with green. And that way you can basically bring more green to the city and being able to retain more rainwater. So that would be one thought that I think that
That's a
it
great
would be
thought. Well, what about
beneficial.
a residential application to that? Can
Well,
you?
and yes, and residential is a little complicated because of the roofs, right? So having a green roof, when you have a different type of, I think it's the inclination of the roofs that get it complicated. But I think in residential, what I will suggest, it will be pervious concrete or pervious pavers. So instead of having concrete, being able to absorb the water on those, and that would be another low cost issue. issue, right? How can we retain more water in our projects instead of just running off on the streets?
Well, think how many. I wonder how many driveways there are in the city of Houston. It's like
Look,
thousands and thousands. No telling. I mean,
if
it's
we
got to
were to
be.
be able to create like a pervious paving or pervious concrete and have some sort of incentive for the houses to change that, that would be a way for us to reduce the amount of water running off from our buildings. That would be a low cost again. And I think in the future also to think about taking older buildings and retrofitting those,
Yeah.
making those buildings more energy efficient, and keeping the history of Houston, having a lot of more fabric, because it's just difficult when you see an older building just get demolished and you starting with a new tower.
I know,
So
just
keeping more
hanging
about the
around.
history. Yeah,
They go down so fast. There was that like
I know.
really old auto dealership there at kind of downtown, kind of near where the Enron buildings were. That this it was like an early day auto dealership, and everything was so different, so easy. They probably sell Model A's or something, uh, and just boom, it's gone. And then nothing happens at this. Hey, we tear it down, we lose piece of history and something that's different, something that can't be made new. We're like, why do we do this? We ask me the answer. Why do people like to go to New Orleans and walk through the French Quarter? It's not because of construction. It's it's a good thing. But yeah, and I've been wondering about this, but I'm thinking about it, and I stay up at night worrying about it. But no, I don't really. But I do think about it. All the recent report from some of the big commercial real estate companies, first quarter reports, it's saying, well, the availability of space, vacancy plus sublease space plus. Anyway, there's about 70 million square feet of available space in the Houston area, either vacant or going to be vacant. Um, it's 70 million feet. And
That's a
the
lot.
way we're leasing space, the way companies are kind of reducing their footprint and people are working from home, all these other issues, it's going to take a long time, if ever, that we can lease 70 million square feet and fill all those buildings up. So you say, what can we do? It doesn't seem sustainable just to demolish everything and turn it into
No.
concrete dust. So what would you think about what do we do with this oversupply of vacant space?
Well,
How
what?
can we do that?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is taking that building and creating different uses. For example, what we're doing in Austin right now, we have buildings that have office space, they have residential, and they have retail in the same building. So if we were to take an high rise, we can leave the top level as the office, the middle level as residential, and the lower level as retail, and having coffee shops and things like that. That will allow people to live and work and play in the same place. That's
Mm,
very attractive. So if we were to retrofit, take the existing structure, retrofit it, and create more housing, we have an issue with housing. We don't have enough housing as it is, and it's very expensive right now. Young generations, they don't know where to live, and the rents are going up. So if we were to do a retrofitting, I will say add more housing, and some of that vacancy become residential, we can reduce the rent that you pay.
mm,
But somehow those buildings could have that solution because they have the possibilities to create more residential. So have the three different types, and even hotels. You can have
mm,
hotels, have few floors,
mm.
maybe put some thinking in there. So that
Yeah,
would be my thought if we want to conserve those structures and just retrofitting and create different uses. And
sure.
that will save downtown.
Yeah, we've got plenty of vacancy down. What you've got these office buildings built in the early '80s and whatever. You got a ton of them, but they're kind of like 25,000 square foot floor plates, 25,000 square feet on one floor. You've got the elevators done thusly, and all this other stuff, and now there's probably plumbing and electrical complications. But what would be, I know just off the top of your head as an architect, that's pretty intelligent here. What are the big hurdles in taking a 25,000 square foot floor plate in a downtown office building and saying, okay, we can make six apartments here? Or what is that? What are there huge hurdles that the common man hadn't thought about?
Yeah, I think the hell is structural supports, and then being able to assess how many people can live in that place, how much weight the structures can hold. So I think the biggest item will be to engage on structural engineers early on in the project and say, if we were to change from office to residential, can the structure hold that much weight? And if not, how can we retrofit the structure in a way that we can make that change? And that will be the most cost they will see, right? In the structure to being able to retrofit in a way that you can change the uses. Now, let's assume the structure is perfect and can hold that. The other big issue will be the elevators, what type of elevators they have, the windows, and the restrooms, right? How much water will be enough for us to retrofit from office to make it apartments or living housing? So there is some homework to do. It's not impossible, but I think there is a lot of demand for housing that it will be a good financial
Yeah, yeah.
business case.
Water is a good. That homes use a lot more water than
That's
office
correct.
building does. You make a little coffee, whatever, but office you don't use much of it. But people at home like taking showers, and I got all these other things that washing clothes. That would
Yeah,
take
you will.
some
Yeah,
engineering, and maybe don't allow people to have pianos or something, for the weight. You think,
something for the weight. Yeah, so maybe
no
having
pianos, man, and no grand piano. That was our one rule. They can't get
exactly. But it is not impossible. Austin is doing it. There are mixed use is the trend in Austin. All of the projects have some sort of mixed use in there. You will see all of those services in one place. So it is happening. It's just not happening in Houston yet, but it's coming. It's coming.
the yeah. We just in Austin, Lincoln Property Company just announced a 74-story building there on Red River Street in
Hmm.
downtown, and it does have multiple uses all the way up.
And
And
that's the way. Yeah.
yes, yeah, I mean, it hasn't broken ground. And this is an affront to Houston. They say it's going to be the tallest building in the state of Texas. They say it's going to be 1,022 feet, and of course, our building there, the J.P. Morgan Chase, the former Texas Commerce Tower, 75 stories on Texas Avenue in Houston, but it's only 1,002 feet. They say
Oh,
the new building is going to be 1,022 feet tall. We'll have to see. I'll believe it when I'm going to take a tape measure out there. I don't like, you know, that it's right across the street from the Houston Chronicle, where the former Houston Chronicle site was, and that tower, 75 stories. I'd walk in, I would use that tunnel, I would go there, use that bank, I do everything. But I hate this, and I always thought that's the tallest building in Houston. And then at one time when I would write about it, I would say it's the tallest building west of the Mississippi. But that kind of faded, 10 or 12 years ago, I think, when somebody built something big in California. So now, but I hate to see Austin surpass us on having the tallest building in the state. That's
yes.
we have enough, local pride. We just hate to see that happen. The
Yeah, it is.
the what else about the future do we
Yeah, I
need to
think
think
that
about?
what we're seeing also is there is a lot about transparency, right? The
Hmm.
people will have to disclose how they're tracking energy and water consumption. For the longest time, we don't have to report it. Nobody can see how much water or energy we consume. But I think this coming, the benchmarking, and benchmarking means that we need to know how much water each of us or how much energy each one of us consume. So the carbon equation is coming, and nobody's going to stop that. So the next step is transparency. So you have to be ready to share with the world your carbon footprint. How how you're doing with that, and they're gonna compare you with other competitors or with other industries in the same level. So that's coming. Everybody's talking about ESGs, the environmental, social, and governance reporting that every company and every large corporation is doing right now. And now, if they are committed to do that, they're having to use certifications like LEED, for example, to show that they're not just talking about it, but they're actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that's why the third-party certifications are going up drastically, because it's a way to show that commitment is being made. So in the future, we'll see LEED maybe as a baseline. And the codes, the energy codes, are also changing quickly. California right now have a code that allows all of the projects in the future to be net zero. I know California is very progressive, but this coming. If California start few years later, then Texas is next. So if that's the case, I think we just have to design in a very sustainable way. Go back to the past, right? When we were architects before the elevator was invented and before the air conditioning was invented, architects used to design with passive strategies. We did not need much. We have to orient the buildings in a certain way and open the windows, right? But now when we have the elevators and we can have air conditioning, now everything is valid, right? But if we were to think differently and say, okay, why don't we design with local materials, with the local climate, with the ventilation, natural ventilation? It's nothing wrong with that. It's just we have to go back to the past and look at what our ancestors did. I think we're going too fast, too quickly, and we forget about the basics of design
Well,
sometimes.
that's interesting. You wonder. It would seem like a lot easier to build net zero in California, where the average temperature is 72 degrees or something, than it is in Houston, where we're dealing with August of high humidity and high heat, and um, trying to do a net zero here would be a challenge.
We do have a project in the Woodlands. It's called the HARC project. I don't know if you're familiar with HARC, but that's a
Houston
research.
Area Research Council, is
Yes,
that it?
yes,
Okay.
Houston Research. Yeah, and they're a small building, and that's our first net zero project, and that's it's possible. So when you have small structures, they're not high rise. It's possible to do a net zero project, and if they're show the way, if it's possible to do it in Houston, we can continue going that path. And of course, not all of the projects will be able to go for lead zero or for net zero, because you're absolutely right. You need certain energy demands. And Houston is so humid, then the air conditioning is just necessary to survive sometimes, at least for a few months.
It's hard. It's
It's
hard.
hard.
I did it. I did it. I grew up in a little house with we weren't that rich, but I grew up in a little house in Houston without air conditioning, and
Did
it
you
was.
survive?
I made it. We slept with the windows open at night, and it's
And then the
cold up.
fans?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
the fans, everything. So we did it. But I like air conditioning a lot better. It's it's tough.
we just
It's
have
tough.
to we just have to reduce the amount. I think, I don't know if you noticed, but we put air conditioning in everything in the schools, even where the kids have the circulation pads, everything is air conditioning. And if we were to be more strategic and say we really need air conditioning in the classrooms, but not necessarily on where the kids go, and the circulation from one building to the next. Or if we were to be strategic and say we only need air conditioning in the offices, but not necessarily in the big lobby that nobody
Mhm.
uses and only passes through. So I think it's just being smart about where and which places can have air conditioning and which places you just passing through, and you don't need to have air conditioning
That's a
24/7
good,
because you're
that's a
just
good
passing
thought.
through, right?
That's a good thought. Yeah, that's a good thought.
More to come.
Maria, uh,
Yes.
thank you so much for taking time to visit with us. We're you guys thinking about the future, and we certainly need to. We really there's a lot to think of, and we've got some real big challenges coming up. As we got lead certification progressing, and that's probably going to end up being like a basic bachelor's degree, I guess. And that's
It
my
will be.
metaphor. You're lead certified, okay. That's you just got to have that just to walk in the door. But
That's
there's other
correct.
things coming. There's Fitwel and well and all these other certifications dealing with health and higher degree of um,
And
awareness.
it's coming because of the COVID-19. It used to be wellness was a big thing, but post COVID-19, I think people start thinking more about wellness now than the past. And now they're taking it more seriously. They really want their projects to have that component and that layer to be able to show the employees that they really care about that. So filtration systems, quality of air, quality of water, all of those things are becoming very super important now.
Maria Perez, Gensler, Sustainability Director, we thank you very much for your time, and we hope to have you back and talk again soon. We've got a lot
Thank
to
you
think
so much
about.
for the invitation.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Okay.